Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. So if you're being asked to create a container that has different colors of either pencils, crayons or chalk, how do you create these things? It's very easy to go through and say you create a cylinder and then maybe you create another cylinder and you start piling these things in. Of course, it would make sense until it gets to that point where you need to actually align those crayons or align those chalks to make sure that they don't touch each other. And this is where it actually becomes interesting, because at most times when you just want to get that perfect physics and you want to get that perfect collision, you would go through and start creating rigid body dynamics. Now, creating this rigid body dynamics to a point can be very easy for some people, and for some other persons, this might just be a total nightmare. And the reason why we're talking about this today is because the folks at Adobe has actually teased something. One of the problems that I've always had with Adobe Max and all of their showcases is the fact that they show very innovative tools, but at the end of the day, you don't really see them come to life. And with the 2020 Max, they shared a couple of things, very interesting stuff, but one thing caught my eye. Of course, I did see most of the things that they talked about, for the Sensei, Photoshop, and also, After Effects, but one thing particularly caught my eye. And I'm talking about nothing more than the physics Whiz. Now, the physics Whiz is something that will be groundbreaking if it actually shows up in popular or everyday 3D software. Now, what happens is this is actually an object manipulation tool that you can use without even having an idea what physics is, or even knowing how to deal with precisions or simulation. You can easily use this tool and do a lot of things. One of the most interesting things that you can do with a tool like this is in terms of set design, in terms of creating layout, and you want everything to be at the exact place. You don't want those penetration that happens, or those infusement that happens whenever you're putting two objects together. This tool will definitely handle this very, very well. So it simply enables users to move any 3D object within their viewport, and then the tool itself responds to every other tool that exists in there. So things like falling under gravity and colliding with other objects is something that this particular tool handles very well. So rather than placing things hand by hand, if this is something that the guys from Adobe would push out, I think a lot of people would buy into that idea. But then it's been over a long time that we've started seeing some conversations that has to do with this. Although this is not the first time we're seeing this, the folks at Side Effects Houdini released the Solaris. So Solaris itself is also another tool that they made, which is for look, dev, layout, and also lighting. And this one also comes with that same physics-based movement. It comes with that physics idea. I just really wish that this is something that most software companies will look at. So if this is also something that will be attached to tool sets that will be coming to next versions of Blender, of course, this would make sense. And yes, the main reason why I'm also talking about this is if you take a look at Blender 2.92, you would also notice that once you go over to the Preference tab, they have this new geometry node. Of course, with the new geometry node, what they are looking at is creating things that deals with nodes and stuff like that. But I don't really think it's going to be a bad idea if we can have that physics-based tool sets, and it's just going to make your work and your life even way easier. Instead of second guessing if an object has dropped properly, you can just drop that object right there, model an object, and you can attach any physics value that you want and get things up and running. So basically, if you want to get the same physics based, or you want to get the same experience that the folks at Adobe are working on, how you get working in Blender is pretty simple. So what you need is a rigid body. So getting a rigid body is very, very easy, but then you need to wait for simulation time. So rigid body basically deals with two sets of things. So for a rigid body, you can either have a passive rigid body or you can get an active one. So let's say, for example, we select the cylinder and we choose to go to rigid body like so, and we make this a rigid body. All right, and then if we go ahead and select the other one, we can choose to make this other one a rigid body and set the first one as passive and then set the second one as active. Now, when you run a simulation, of course, you can see this kind of simulation just runs very easy. Everything looks nice. But then when you want to do something that has to do with a stack of pencils, a stack of stuff like we started out earlier when we started the conversation, you would notice that when you go through and create an array of these things, you may not get the desirable result. And this is also something that these guys are trying to fix. But if you want to get that kind of result, which is fairly easy when you look at something like this, what you need to do is you would have to, stack these things one after the other, and then go ahead, select what you want and convert that to a rigid body, set that to active, select the next one, convert it to a rigid body, and also set that to passive. In most cases, I would suggest that once you set this rigid body, you need to go all the way down, go to the collision section, and you can choose to change this from convex hull and set it to mesh, depending on what you want to create. And then you can also do the same for this other one. Now, once you have this done, press the playback button, you can have your simulation running. Depending on the speed of your computer, depending on the processing time, you will get some very desirable result. So this is definitely going to be about it. I'm very, very excited about this particular tool, and I just want to see it in more, visible 3D applications. Truth be told, the folks at Adobe, they have a huge set of cool stuff, and before you get them, it just takes like forever. So tell me what you guys think about this in the comment section. I cannot wait to start seeing developers create something like this. And if you like this video, you can go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And of course, if you're new here, it's going to be amazing for you to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video or the next update. And until I see you guys again with a tutorial update, Free Friday, Tutorial Tuesday, tips and tricks, things like this. Peace.